I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. Alright, so having a countdown of my favorite cartoon characters might open a floodgate of comments like, "You can't be serious," or "You forgot to mention that character," or my favorite, "Oh, that is such a complete cop-out, you had to choose that character." Well, let me set the record straight. The cartoon character that you necessarily obsess over might not be the character that I mildly enjoy at times. So let's go over the ground rules. As this list goes on, you might notice that I choose characters that have a pretty long history on television and shorts. I don't want you to get the wrong impression that I don't like animated characters in movies. If anything, these characters might have made the jump to the large screen. It just so happens that the ones I find more enjoyable have a longer history, in which I got more familiar with their characters, something of which covers more than an hour and a half. So without further ado, these are my 5 favorite cartoon characters. Coming at number 5 is Screwy Squirrel from the MGM shorts. This is probably the more obscure choice to include on the list, but still feels appropriate. It reflects one of my favorite eras in cartoon history, which is when Tex Avery went to MGM Studios. What resulted was a wacky squirrel that lived up to his namesake.
He hit me with everything but the kitchen sink.
Well, don't want to disappoint you, chap.
Some like to argue that the character of Bugs Bunny was created by Tex, but that ended up being a history lesson on its own. What I can say is that a lot of his influence comes from smart Alex, self-aware humor, and great anticipation, resulting in some great reaction shots. Tex takes all the qualities he took from Termite Terrence and melts it together to form Screwy, a squirrel that I could describe as a fusion of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. He's showy, egotistical, and above all else, a trickster. I was originally split between other characters perfected by Tex Avery, like Droopy Dog and Wolfie, but I find Screwy to be the least interchangeable from the rest. My main complaint, which is why I tend to think he's not a household name, is that he tends to be too wacky. I think people at least appreciate something a little more down to earth, which is where the later Looney Tunes fit into play. But for whatever reason, I find Screwy still enjoyable to watch. If you haven't heard of him until this list, I highly recommend watching some of his shorts to come to your own conclusion.
You know, I like him. He's silly.
Taking the number 4 spot is SpongeBob SquarePants. I think a lot of people can openly complain that his time is running out, but the qualities of this character keep me from ripping my hair out. Creator Stephen Hillenburg appropriately describes SpongeBob as a square peg in a round hole, and when you think about it, SpongeBob tends to be living in his own world, particularly removed from reality. His friends are out there, his hobbies are awkward, and his optimism is way over the top. In contrast to SpongeBob, having a pet snail that occasionally purrs and points out his flaws keeps this square peg philosophy alive. My favorite episodes tend to be the one where everybody else is living an ordinary mundane existence, in contrast to SpongeBob's offbeat sensibilities. My least favorite episodes are the ones that make him intentionally a moron, which is what the later seasons would harp on. Early on, SpongeBob was never really a dumb person. He was just eccentric, and living in his own world. Added on the fact that with episodes like Ripped Pants showed a side of SpongeBob that was attention-grabbing and even selfish at times. Wait, I said selfish, not whatever. While Patrick is also pretty out there and arguably has the funnier lines, I love you, SpongeBob is there to be his contrast. Some might argue that when Rocko's Modern Life had a similar out there reflection of life, it tends to take more risks, even if it didn't pay off. I feel that the time working on that show, Hillenburg was able to take some of the qualities that worked in order to make SpongeBob the character he wants, as well as the voice actor that played Heffa playing the iconic Sponge, and giving him that laugh that takes a while to tolerate.
Good one, Patrick.
One thing that I find annoying is that Tom Kenny seemed to make his voice higher pitched in later seasons, something I noticed when the movie came out. I don't find it terribly bad, just an annoyance. I always like the slower pitch of the original character, even if it's been a while since then, but for now, I can settle with what we have in this Pineapple Dweller. Coming at number 3 is Homer Simpson from The Simpsons. Yeah, I'm aware that this is another choice that came from a show that's outstaying its welcome. I could also have a whole list dedicated to my favorite characters in Springfield. However, when focusing on the family, Homer tends to be my favorite. Oddly enough, when The Simpsons was at its height, I felt that a lot of kids were enjoying Bart. He always seemed like the character that was pushed for my generation. However, when I felt that Bart tended to be tad too jerky and other times kind of a wimp, Homer acted more like the child than the actual child. Now how does that work? Much like SpongeBob, Homer is a character that's on his own planet. He's absent-minded, selfish, and lazy. His laziness tends to be the quality people think of the most. However, what I find to be the best thing about Homer is how much of a caricature of a middle-class American father he is, both relatable and wacky.
Why, you little?
Well, discounting those moments. Homer is relatable in ways that keeps Peter Griffin off this list. While I do find Peter to be funny, the Family Guy world is just too unrelatable in contrast to The Simpsons and Springfield. And well as for the sheer comparison, Homer might as well be more human and relatable than the other cartoon dads. I especially love the episodes like Mother Simpson's that will go into his past and even develop Homer into what he is today. That, and when he does get caught in awkward situations, it makes for some funny stuff. Homer in space, India, the big league, computer-generated imagery, and even hell are just a few examples. Homer may be a terrible father figure, but at least he still keeps me laughing and staying crunchy through the whole time.
Stay crunchy, man. Stay crunchy.
Yeah, it's a bad joke, but I wanted to use this clip somehow. Taking the number 2 spot is Bugs Bunny. What's a list of awesome cartoon characters without the granddaddy of great cartoons? And yes, I'm aware that choosing Bugs Bunny over other memorable Looney Tunes might seem like a cheap shot. Some people find themselves relating to Daffy Duck, while laughing over Foghorn Leghorn's political incorrectness. Me personally, Bugs Bunny has always been my favorite. Even now, I watch older cartoons with a new perspective that makes me appreciate him more. I especially love how some animators can change between making him wackier like Bob Clampett and Tex Avery. But unlike Screwy Squirrel, who tends to be the focus on being a screwball alone, there's a more laid-back persona Chuck Jones and Bob McKimson will hone in on. What does remain the same is that Bugs Bunny is your typical prankster, with the iconic Brooklyn Brogue brought to us by Mel Blanc, a master manipulator who 90% of the time gets away with his schemes. Well, the other 10% he does get foiled, like in the shorts Falling Hair, Bat and Bunny, and Tortoise Wins by a Hair. If anything, it shows that his arrogance does get the best of him at times. But that doesn't throw off his confidence. I think what I enjoy the most is how Bugs Bunny loves to chew scenery, and how much he loves being a scoundrel. He doesn't just die or simply provoke the hunter, he gets uncomfortably close and even lands a kiss. Folks, it was a different time.
Lady, if you don't find a rabbit with lipstick amusing, you and I have nothing to say to each other.
People like to get specific about Bugs' sexuality when mentioning his cross-dressing disguises or kissing the antagonist. Me personally, I never really viewed it like that. If anything, it showed how passionate Bugs was in conniving people, going as far as dressing up as another gender. However you view it, I think we can all agree that Bugs is an iconic character for more than one reason, and it doesn't take a maroon long to figure out why. Well, here it is. The character that I like more than Bugs Bunny. And frankly, it might disappoint you. And I wouldn't blame you, but I gotta get it off my chest somehow, so let's go ahead. I want you to keep an open mind when I present why I find this character to be culturally significant as well as personally enjoyable. Look, I can understand completely if you despise this character with all your might. The thing is though, when it comes to cartoon characters that have come from the 1920s, how many cartoon characters can you say still has a cultural impact to today? Chances are my previous entries might not be as significant as they were 20 years in the future. Hell, even 10 as they were in their prime. Some cartoon characters like Betty Boop and Felix the Cat have tried to make comebacks, but they never work out. Even as much as I love Bugs Bunny, attempts at modernizing him for a current audience have not always fared well. With Mickey Mouse, it seems like every time the character is brought back, there's an audience out there enjoying him and his cartoons. Now the thing that most people argue with his character being the same, happy-go-lucky scramp working to his advantage. Because the shorts have changed over time, one might argue that having a simple template helps when requiring him to act differently. He's less like one cartoon character, and more like a cartoon actor, playing the role of different characters, even if he doesn't compromise the voice or upbeat attitude. Mickey Mouse is kinda like the George Clooney of cartoon characters. Even if it seems like he's playing the same character, it doesn't stop him from choosing different roles. Part of that appeal that does give him more variety. Do you want to see Mickey Mouse become a spiteful, beer-guzzling jerk? There's a cartoon for that. Do you want to see him as a middle-class American chilling out with his friends? There's a cartoon for that. How about a trippy journey, or as an action star? And yes, an icon for preschool education. As I said, there are cartoons for that. I do like certain roles. Even though I'm generally more accepting of his character, I'm a big fan of the black and white cartoons animated by iWorks, which features a more aggressive version that isn't too common. It's part of why I enjoy watching the current cartoons led by Paul Rudish, because it captures the same sense of fun, but with a different aesthetic. So yeah, you can give me a whole list about all the things wrong with Mickey Mouse. It won't stop me from enjoying the past, present, and future of this character. So that's a list of my 5 favorite cartoon characters. And as always, I do encourage you to list your own favorite cartoon characters as well in the comments section below. Now I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and thanks for watching.
Within the rhythms I believe is the power of wings.